The officer who died, it was Officer Brian Sicknick. He's with the United States Capitol Police, and his family is pleading with the public to give them a little bit of privacy and to not make his death political. But I do want to give you some details about what we know and how he died.
We begin this half hour with breaking news on the Capitol riot. The medical examiner has released the cause of death for Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick. It turns out Officer Sicknick suffered a stroke and died of natural causes.
The flags at the U.S. Capitol are at half staff this morning for the police officer Brian Sicknick, who was murdered this week. But they are not at half staff at the White House. Perhaps because Officer Sicknick was the enemy of the terrorist mob, and the mob loves Trump.
Officer Brian Sicknick, he died from injuries after being struck in the head by a fire extinguisher during the storming of the Capitol.
Officer Sicknick, who was, killed, murdered there by the mob.
The murder of Officer Brian Sicknick by Trump supporters.
These Republicans, they really don't care what the facts are. They don't care about the cop killers. Cop killers. Cop killers. Cop killers. Trump. Cop killers. Cop killers. Trump. Cop killers. Cop killers. Cop killers. Trump. Cop killers. Struck them dead.
You know, they have extreme desires for murder and overthrow of the government. And if they had gotten in there and gotten their hands on a congressman or senator, they would have slit their throats. They would have hung them, they would have shot them, they would have beat them to death.
The cops who love to enable these rioters and people like that led to one United States Capitol Police officer dying as a result of being violently assaulted with a fire extinguisher by one of the rioters. Now, a medical examiner has ruled that Sicknick died of strokes or natural causes and not by homicide, which was what everyone previously thought, based on statements by the Capitol Police, by the way. At some point in the chaos, this is according to the New York Times, with the mob rampaging through the halls of Congress while lawmakers were forced to hide under their desks, he was struck with a fire extinguisher.
3 sources are telling our Bruce Leshan that this officer was hit with a fire extinguisher.
One of the top priorities for prosecutors is the hunt for cop killers, the people responsible for the murder of U.S. Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick.
And I think you pointed this out earlier, Chris. This is the scene of the crime where he is laying in honor right now, and the scene of the crime where they will be voting on impeachment.
The MAGA mob attacked Officer Brian Sicknick, and he died.
Officer Sicknick is only the 4th Capitol Police officer to be killed in the line of duty since the force was actually founded.
All this as America is mourning the loss of 42-year-old Capitol Police officer and veteran Brian Sicknick, killed as a result of Wednesday's chaos. Officials investigating reports that he was attacked with a fire extinguisher.
Officer Sicknick was the one officer who was beaten to death.
Brian Sicknick, who passed away on Wednesday, beaten, murdered here at the hands of these individuals, these insurrectionists here.
There are officers like Brian Sicknick who died actually trying to keep people safe, including people like you.
No information about the death of Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick. Now, the chief medical examiner says that Officer Sicknick suffered 2 strokes and died of natural causes.
I think that some folks, the right, will probably look at this and be like, see, nobody died. Anyway, doopy-doopy-doo. Nothing happened, no laws broken. No, I think that absolutely there could be a cause and effect here of someone suffering that kind of intimidation, violence, fear.
And he actually died from natural causes. Sicknick suffered 2 strokes at the base of the brainstem caused by a clot in an artery that supplies blood to that area of the body.
Officer Sicknick was one of many Capitol Police officers who were trying to protect that building as this violent mob stormed their way inside. We know that those injuries that he received ultimately led to his death.
There are channels in which lies are told, and there are channels in which facts are told, and people who want the lies, they don't come here. They go to a different channel.
Anyway, doopy-doopy-doo.
He was hit in the head with that fire extinguisher.
If I was to do the exact same thing, I would be dead right now, Anna. Like, I would literally be dead.